taking over at the quarterback spots. I mean, I maybe massive downgrades in overstatement, but it's a pretty big downgrade. And so I think with those two things in mind, and the ACC being a little bit stronger this year, although not that strong, I don't think they're a top 10 team. Although can they end up being one of the best two teams in the ACC? Yes, because I think right now it's Miami and everybody else to an extent.
There's Clemson there. I would put Clemson
Yeah.
above Miami just because Miami hasn't had any proven on-field success. Clemson, love or hate Dabo, they've
Yeah.
had on-field success.
I think in terms of talent, it's Miami and everybody else. Clemson has that coaching one up, right? But I mean, Cristobal is not a bad coach by any means.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of this game, it'll be a fun appetizer for week one. I'll wake up on Saturday morning and it'll be good to have college football back on my screen. But when Florida State's probably up 28-3 at halftime, I probably will not continue to watch. I feel bad for fans overseas in the UK and in Ireland, right? We send all these games both in college and NFL over there, and it seems like we just give them the worst games. Like, why not give us, like, we have, I think, Georgia Clemson is week one, I believe. Why not have that over there or something like that? Now, obviously, it's probably a money standpoint. They're doing that Mercedes-Benz. It's sold out in 5 seconds, but I mean, I think it sucks for them over there. I mean, I'm sure the American football fans over there are just happy to have some high level football, but you know,
Yeah, and they're still getting one pretty good team.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't complain too much if I were them because, it's our sport, it's our soil. I'd rather have every high profile game be here. But, maybe we could sit something special next year. Give them maybe a tantalizing group of 5 matchup. Maybe something like an App State versus ECU when they're both good. That could be an underrated matchup. There's plenty we can send over there. And there's also, of course, the big storyline. Besides the Florida State Georgia Tech game, the Delaware State team has been trying desperately to get to Hawaii.
I didn't hear about this.
Yes, they missed their first flight due to an issue with the busing, just getting the team to the airport. So half the team is set to arrive on commercial flights at like noon on Friday, and then the rest of the team is slated to get there later in the evening, with the game being played Saturday. So, very interesting situation with Delaware State going to Hawaii. Always fun to see teams have to go all the way out there. Usually, it should be a little bit of a treat at the start of the season.
Yeah.
This time around, I don't think not so much.
I mean, that's what I'm gonna say. At least they get to go. Hopefully, they get to hang out in Hawaii a couple of days after that. I don't think they can fly back on Saturday night after the game.
No, I got a hope for them too, but I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it with week 0. There's not a ton going on. I think most people will watch this Florida State game and get on with their day. I mean, I'm sure there will be some gamblers and some diehards, sweating it out on the Delaware Hawaii games. But for the common man, I don't think that'll be the case. And with no Tennessee yet, I mean we'll get into Tennessee kind of outlook in week 1 on probably all 3 shows next week. So I thought for our college football segment outside of week 0 stuff, since this is the second to last show before the college football season officially starts, it could be fun to kind of just get into some macro stuff with college football. So I will give it to you, Dom, first. I think we could do. I mean, do you want to do our 12-team prediction? I mean, that'd be who, because the way the format is now would be, okay, who do we think is going to win the 4 major conferences and who are going to be at large? Because I think that could be, instead of saying, who's going to win the, Big 10 or whatever, I think we can just do it that way and knock a lot of that stuff out. So I think we kind of go back and forth. So I'll give it to you. Come what's the final date? Like December something.
Yeah.
Who I think I know the answer to this question. Who do you see getting that number 1 seed?
Without a doubt in my mind right now, it's Georgia.
Yeah.
I can't see any other way around it, considering how good they looked with Carson Beck last year, and that was a unexperienced, untested Carson Beck. As much as I don't really like the guy, great ball player, genuinely pretty fun to watch if you're not rooting against Georgia. I mean, personally, I always am, but Carson Beck, the boy can ball, and that team just everything Kirby does is just the modern equivalent of Nick Saban. I really fully believe that the Georgia dynasty is going to keep on trekking at least for the next little while. But there's a room for another team to sort of step in here in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I have Georgia as well. That they would be my number one. I mean, I think the biggest thing here is I think people who aren't as dialed into the SEC think Carson Beck is just another Stetson Bennett. He is not. Stetson Bennett ran the system and they still won a national championship. Carson Beck is making a difference. So I mean, yeah, I think there's a clear cut. I mean, they do have a somewhat tough schedule as does pretty much everybody in the SEC. They have Clemson out of conference. They take on Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They take on Texas in Austin. I mean, it's a tough schedule, but they are the best team by far. And I think I think they'll probably run the table, but I think even if they slip up one of those games, they probably still end up number one because I don't see another SEC team having only one loss. We can get more into that in a minute. Who would be your number two, Dom?
Number two, nationally or SEC?
Nationally, we're doing
nationally.
12, yeah. Nationally,
it's honestly really tough to call right now, but I do have good feelings about Oregon. I really think that they're in a good spot to take things over. I'm a firm Dan Lanning believer. I really think that he's brought more SEC mentality out to the West, and playing in a conference like the Big Ten with an offense that Oregon has, it's going to be pretty ridiculous to watch because these are teams that are used to limiting everyone they play to 13 points. Oregon's not going to let that happen. They're going to blow a lot of these teams wide open. They're not going to have the scoring capability to keep up. I really don't see a team being able to keep pace with Oregon's offense in the Big Ten. We're having there, but Ohio State is maybe the only other competitor I can truly see. Because Michigan, it's over. They're done. Well, they shouldn't be allowed in the postseason, and they just might not be. So I'm not really considering Michigan right now, but yeah, Ohio State. I don't see it with Ryan Day. Ryan Day is not that guy, and Ohio State is usually not that team. So give me Oregon out of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Big Ten wave as well. I think most people will have the SEC champion and the Big Ten champion as their one and two. I do like Ohio State. I think with Michigan, not completely out of the picture, but kind of down a little bit. I think Ohio State kind of has a clear path here to win. I think it's Ohio State, Oregon there in that championship game. I mean, Will Howard coming up from Kansas State is a pretty good player. I mean, the rest of their roster is ridiculous. They recruit and use the transfer portal super well. To your point, I mean, I don't love Ryan Day either. I just think, Ohio State and Ryan Day know the Big Ten better than Oregon does. Oregon's used to Pac-12 play. They're coming in playing these opponents for the first time. I think, with these two teams in my mind kind of being similar talent-wise, I just like Ohio State's experience in the Big Ten. So they would be my number two. Your number three, Dom, obviously for the top four got the ACC champion and the Pac, or the Big 12 champion.
This one's really hard for me to go with on the number three if we're doing the conference champions route.
Yeah, well, it's got to be for the playoff schedule. Yeah,
it's a weird one. I really don't know if I can quite call it, but I'm going to go a little outlandish here. I don't think a lot of people are thinking about this, but give me Kansas. Kansas has run.
That is outlandish.
Kansas has ran a ridiculous offense under Lance Leipold. That Big 12 right now is wide open. They don't have a lot of competition. Well, they do have good competition in it, but there's not a lot of high-level teams. Not many teams I consider top 10, but there's a lot that sit in that top 15 to top 30 range. It's going to be a difficult gauntlet to run, but I like Kansas being able to outpace everyone because the Big 12, the teams that are left, definitely strikes me as a more offensive paced game. I think the biggest difficulty they will run into is probably going to be Utah. And with Utah, my issue with them coming in is I, I give Kansas the edge on the offense for sure. I think that it's going to be a question of pace, and I think Kansas is going to be able to bring a level of pace that Utah's not used to. They have had to deal with teams like Oregon and Washington, but I don't know. I, I'm doing the same sort of logic as you. They got more experience with the Big 12. I don't I don't like Utah as much this season. Even with Cam Rising, I feel like having a guy that old is starting to be less helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we're flip flopping in here. I do like Utah State to win, or I do like Utah to come in here and win this. I think they are an experienced team. I like Cam Rising. Their defense fantastic. I mean, of the top four teams kind of coming into the season that conference, they only have to play one of them in Oklahoma State. They don't play Kansas. They don't play Kansas State, and
Arizona.
I don't think they play Arizona either. Oh no, they do play Arizona, but they have Arizona at home. So only one road game against those top four, and they only play two of the top four. I think that schedule favors them a little bit, and I just think when it comes down to it, I like Utah a little better, and they just have more experience at high level play. They've been in New Year's Six bowl games. They've been there before, and Kansas hasn't. They've kind of just been this new resurgence. So like them a little better there. But yeah, 4 will be your ACC champion by default then.
I can't really pick one out that truly stands out, but I'm going to stick with Clemson here. I'm just not a big Florida State believer right now. I do think they really benefited from a weaker schedule last season. Clemson, on the other hand, it's similarly weak schedule, but I think experience is going to help out, and I think going against DJU at Clemson, he's going to be at Florida State obviously, but he used to be a Clemson player. They're going to know some of his tendencies. They're going to have a better read on that guy. So I think that Clemson's going to have the keys they need and the tools to be able to unravel the ACC that they need to, but it's not going to be a pretty ACC.
Yeah, for me it's Miami. I like Cristobal, and I think their schedule is a cakewalk. And with this 12-team playoff now, if you're 13-0, it's not like last year. You're in. You have that spot guaranteed for you, and I think Miami can do that very easily. I mean, from week 1 up until the Florida State game, I just see them rolling through every single one of these teams. I mean, when they get into ACC play, Virginia Tech's better than they have been, but I don't think they're great. Cal's not good. Louisville's not good. They have Florida State at home now as a home field advantage. Really much for Miami up there in Coral Gables? No, but they don't have the Florida State crowd at least. I think Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse, they don't have to play UNC, they don't play NC State, they don't have to play Clemson. I just think I will put a ridiculous amount of money that they will be in the ACC championship. I see no world where they're not, and the question is, can they beat the Clemson? Can they beat NC State? Something like that.
The issue with Miami I have, however, is if you look back to last year, you can see some obvious coaching issues. The infamous, all you had to do was kneel, and you would have won the game.
Yeah.
And they run the ball against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech comes back in a miracle. So I'm still a little out on Cristobal. And just Miami has a horrible athletic department culture right now. It really fell apart once they tore down the Orange Bowl. I really don't think that program is capable of winning at a high level, playing in Hard Rock Stadium with no fans. If you look at their facilities too, they don't actually have a full practice field. It is a half practice field. They have all the money in the world, but they don't have great facilities, and they have horrible fan support. I just have a hard time buying into Miami on any level. They do have the talent, and it's a weak ACC, so I can see them being in the game for sure, but I don't think they'll win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the argument. I think the other thing to say is, what has Miami done? Nothing. But the question is now with the 12-team playoff, does that matter as much? I mean, you saw a team like TCU in there. What had they done before that? Or even a team like Michigan State did make it. Does that mean they have any chance this year? I mean, even with the transfers, no. But so I think the history just doesn't matter as much, especially with the transfer portal. When coaches come in now, in the past, for you to recruit, be like, all right, well, you got to give them 3 or 4 years to get their guys in there. It's not the case anymore. You can get your guys day one. I mean, we saw that with Deion Sanders. He completely flipped that roster the second he got him hit. So,
4-8 still.
I didn't say the roster was good. I said he got his guys.
He did.
But yeah, that's our top 4. I think we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll jump in to the wild card teams. But I think it'll be a more interesting conversation, more nuanced.
Hey UT, I'm Corinne Farley from Knoxville. I want to give a shout out to my cat Tina Mouth. This is Volunteer Radio.
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. The 2024 football Vols will play home games inside Neyland Stadium against SEC rivals Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and others. AllVols.com for info with a link at WTKRadio.com. UT student ticket info is at bigorangetickets.utk.edu. 90.3 The Rock says, go Vols. Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. This 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands, Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WTKRadio.com.
90.3 The Rock receives support from Knoxville Plasma off Middlebrook Pike, just west of downtown Knox. Knoxville Plasma offers a safe and clean environment for Knox locals to donate plasma and earn cash while also helping provide much-needed plasma to folks who need life-saving therapies. Info on Knoxville Plasma's social media.
The Rock receives support from Fieldhouse Social, sports games paired with full beers and reach in University Commons. Fieldhouse Social offers a diverse menu of tavern foods such as pulled pork nachos, Fieldhouse Cobb salad, and Applewood smoked chicken. Kick back and relax in the lounge. FieldhouseSocial.com.
All right, very quick sponsor break for you guys. WTK bringing you lots of content. Not a lot of sponsor reads for you guys to hear, but yeah, jumping right back into this. Got through. If you weren't listening before, talked about our top 4 teams who we think are going to secure those top 4 bids in the college football playoff this season, and now we're going to get into these 8 wild card teams, which I think will be a little more interesting. And we don't have to go back and forth on this fully. We can kind of just start with it. I mean, I think in most people's minds, the Big Ten and the SEC could both be 4 bid leagues in theory, right? If the stars align correctly. We can start with you, Dom. Talked about these 4 champions. Who is this 5 seed? Who do you think is kind of the best team that you don't think is going to win their respect? Or maybe an independent team, maybe Notre Dame in the back of your mind. I don't know.
Best team that I think won't win their conference.
Who's your first one? I can go. I think for me, it's going to be Oregon here at 5. Like I said, I was very close on them in Ohio State. I could see it going either way. I could see them both being, 1-loss teams going into that championship game and battling it out. And if that's the case, and then that's a close game, the loser probably secured that 5 seed. So I'll go Oregon here.
This is a tough one for me, but honestly, I'm feeling the Vols. I'm not going to lie. I really do think that Tennessee has a solid chance here to get to the SEC championship game. Just with the schedule that we have this year, immensely more easy than anything we've played in the past couple of years. The Vols have all the tools to succeed right now. Whether or not they do it, that does remain to be seen. But I am buying in on this team. I've been a very adamant backer of Josh Heupel since he got here. So I really do think this team has a shot to be in the SEC championship game. And if you're there, I feel like you get that second spot because the only teams I can really see UT losing to this season would have to be Oklahoma, potentially just because it's their first SEC home game. That's a tough environment. Alabama, Georgia. if we win one of those 3 games, I think we still have a solid shot at the SEC title game. Just with no divisions anymore, we don't have to worry about beating out Georgia. So I really think there's a shot there, and if we win 2 of those 3 games, we're guaranteed to be there pretty much. So I'm really high on the Vols this year. I do think we have a shot at it, but I think the real question we want to get into is one that people are somewhat excited about and why they bought into this system in the first place is the 5 highest ranked conference champions get in. So with no more Pac-12, who's that sneaky Group of 5 team, or is it a Pac-2 team?
Well, I don't think it's a Pac-2 team. I don't know. Like I said, I agree with you. Tennessee would be my 6. Talk about that more, but I don't even know. I think the way they're not guaranteed the 5 spot though, right? I don't think so.
I don't know if they're guaranteed the 5
They're-
seed, but
yes,
they're an automatic bid.
Correct. Yeah. But let me think about that for a second. Let me. So Tennessee is my 6 as well. I mean, I think we've seen it with Heupel when he has a quarterback that can do what he wants to do. It works. We saw with Hooker when he's a quarterback who can't, like Joe Milton. It doesn't work. I mean, this team, the defense is very good outside the secondary. It's a little iffy back there. I mean, I think the weapons on offense are there. The question is can Nico do what he needs to do? And I think that answer is yes. I mean, we have, in my opinion, the best player in the country on the defensive side. I think Tennessee is a team that I think has a very good shot at making it, a very good shot, like you said, rolling into either that 5 or 6 seed being the second best team. I don't think they have a great shot at overtaking Georgia, but you never know. I mean, outside of that, I think we're kind of in agreement, right? That it's going to be kind of the runners up in the SEC and the Big Ten to take those spots. You know, the other teams that I would be looking at, we can talk about. I mean, Texas coming in at number 4 in the AP poll to start the season, obviously coming off a playoff berth this last season, and now coming over to the SEC. I think in my mind they're in that next tier in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range. Kind of where do you see them falling? Do you think they get done right away in the SEC? Is there some pitfalls there at the beginning? Where are you at?
Texas, a lot of people are really high on still. I don't believe in it fully because I've mentioned this on other shows. The issue with the SEC is it's not about your top guys. It's about the guys who are behind your top guys. Because in the SEC, you're going to get injured. You're going to have to deal with a lot of injury issues. So it's really a question of size too. Because in the SEC, players are just bigger. They're trained better. They work harder. It's a different environment. I don't think that can be overstated. When people say Texas is not ranked in the SEC, I think that's the most apt way to put it. I mentioned once before that I think if you took the combined player weight of the SEC versus the combined player weight of any other league, it'd be significantly higher. I just think that it's a bigger league. It's difficult to stay healthy in. So, as for Texas, they do have some depth at the QB spot, but other than that,
does depth the QB spot matter though? I mean,
not necessarily, because QBs are not very likely to get injured in this day and age. But I mean, you look at their schedule, and there's not a ton of struggles until you see them start getting the SEC. Georgia's going to be one of those teams they struggle with, and then beyond that, it's a really weak schedule for Texas. So I definitely think they slide in, but I don't think they go to the SEC championship. I don't think that they're going to be able to do any real damage.
all right, we'll go to another one. I think will also kind of be in that 7 to 10 range in Ole Miss. I mean, this team under Lane Kiffin is probably the best team that the state of Mississippi has ever seen. But I mean, it has been interesting. You know, if you think back, grouping in Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I feel like when you see these teams get a lot of hype at the beginning of the season, they're not that good. And when they're kind of in that like 20 to 30 range, has been their sweet spot. I mean, you think back to well, I guess it was 24. I think it was the first year of the playoff when they were 1-2 at some point in the polling, and then kind of fell off. But clearly, I think you would agree that the best team that Ole Miss or Mississippi State has had in a long time, and are pretty poised to have a good shot here.
Without a doubt, the main issue with the Ole Miss bid is that if you're a team like Ole Miss, you don't benefit from being ranked high at the start of the season. Because when you're ranked high, that first loss, like, oh, well, it's Ole Miss dropping down a bunch because this is the Ole Miss everyone's used to. It's not a new competitive team. So I think their first loss is going to hurt them a lot just with where they're positioned. However, I still think they're a great team, and they're still very much in playoff contention. It's just a matter of if Lane Kiffin is able to guide them well through SEC play with a tough schedule.
Yeah, and I think with Ole Miss, it seems like Alabama's kind of been the heel for them, and having Alabama out of the way definitely opens some things up for them to kind of maybe be that number 2 team. Now, obviously, we're talking about Tennessee or Texas more, but I think there's definitely a world where Lane Kiffin kind of takes that number 2 spot.
It is wide open, and tiebreakers and complications will undoubtedly play a role because I envision Georgia going undefeated. That means Georgia will have a win against Texas and Tennessee. I cannot remember if they play Ole Miss or not, but it's going to definitely play a role in deciding that 2 spot.
Yeah. Another team that I think has a chance to be in that range, and for me, it really all depends on 2 games, is Notre Dame, right? With them being kind of the only independent here in the conversation, their toughest games are week 1 against A&M, and they play Florida State, which I think A&M's going to be decent this year, but down the line, those 2 games, if those teams don't pan out to be that great, their schedule is easy. They don't have to play a conference championship game, and the committee loves Notre Dame. The media loves Notre Dame. I see them getting in pretty easily unless they blow both those games and do one of their classic Notre Dame games that lose to like a Marshall at home. But I think Notre Dame has a very clear path, and I like what they've been doing so far. I mean, this is kind of the year for
Marcus Freeman.
this is the year he has to do, right?
Yeah, there's not an easier schedule out there, an easier path. Like you said, the only games he really has to win are 2 out of the 3 with Florida State, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M. I see Texas A&M being
that Notre Dame versus Notre Dame game is going to be a really tough one.
USC, Florida State, and Texas A&M. Correction. But yeah, those are 3 potential losses. You clear 1 or 2 of those hurdles, and you're probably in. Like you said, the committee loves them. They don't have to play a tough conference championship game. It's really not that difficult for Notre Dame to get in.
Yeah. Next thing I want to talk about again, kind of in this getting to the edge of this 12 here, is Penn State. Penn State and James Franklin seem like they're just made for the 12-team playoff. I think the stat is if it would have been a 12-team playoff since the playoff started, they would have made it 6 or 7 out of the 10 times. They've just consistently been in that like 6 to 12 range. That's kind of where James Franklin lives. He goes in, he loses to Ohio State and Michigan and beats everybody else. But guess what? This year, he doesn't have to play Michigan. I don't believe. I don't believe they play Michigan. They're going to lose to Ohio State, and they'll probably win everything else. So I think this is built for them. And if we're talking about that 3rd or 4th or Big Ten team, I think it's Penn State over Michigan.
Yeah, Ohio State's really the only struggle there for Penn State. So this is their year to get in, because if they don't, James Franklin really needs to find another job.
All right. Anyone else kind of sitting in that like 10 to 12 range that you feel strongly about? Or if not, maybe we can talk about some people who are a little more of a wild card team. Maybe not that we think off the top are going to be in that 12, but if the stars align, could be. Or do you have another team you feel strongly will be in that 12?
We got to look at the Group of 5 champions.
That's true, yeah.
And I really think that unequivocally right now the answer is Boise State, not just because I'm from
Homer
there and
over
grew
here.
up a Bronco fan, but the Mountain West right now is pretty weak. The only real competition is UNLV. Fresno State is not looking as good as they have in the past. They've had a lot of good quarterbacks come through there in Fresno, but Boise State usually beats them anyways in their good years. So I don't see anyone giving Boise State trouble in the Mountain West, and everyone has them so highly right now that if they just win out in the Mountain West, I mean it's pretty much a guaranteed spot at this point.
And how awesome would it be? So these first round of playoff games will be home games. If Boise State secured that, we got to see the blue field for a playoff game. That would be awesome.
That would be incredible. I would definitely want to try really hard to be there because there were many years where Boise State was really close to playing in a national title game, and you know a lot of people hate Colin Kaepernick for reasons unrelated to football. I hate him because he beat Boise State at Nevada. He was the Achilles heel for the Broncos in an era where they probably could have made the national title game. So it would be very special for the little guy version of me that still rests within my soul to be able to see playoff football on the blue.
Yeah, for me in the G5 conversation, I think Liberty has a very legitimate chance to repeat as the best G5 team. They were last year. Return Caden Salter, I think is his name. Their starting quarterback, and he was the MVP of Conference USA last year. He had a ridiculously good season, and I was kind of surprised he didn't end up somewhere else. But I think maybe that's good signs for Liberty that people are bought in. I mean, their toughest game is probably App State. I think if they win that App State game, they can probably run the table and have a very legitimate shot to beat that.
I definitely think Liberty's got a shot too because they're also a bit of a media darling in terms of Group 5 teams. So it's really a competition between who slips up more between Boise State and Liberty because there's really not a whole lot of competition.
Yeah.
And then other teams that we think have a shot of maybe sneaking in.
Yeah, let's do that. One wild card team each, and then we'll jump to break. We got a couple of fun topics for the last segment of the show. If you have yours, I have mine. If not,
I have mine. Honestly, USC is still a team that I think hangs in there simply because that offense is really lethal under Lincoln Riley. We'll see how it is in Big Ten and a league that specializes in defense. But who knows? Maybe it's going to be a case where all the other teams are trying really hard to be able to keep pace with USC. Their only issue is they have a really tough schedule.
Yeah.
So they have to play to their schedule level, and if they do, I mean, they're very well contended.
for me, it's NC State. I think Grayson McCall is a great quarterback, and I think they've put together a really good roster. But it's just all, can they get through September? They play Tennessee and they play Clemson. The Tennessee game is obviously a neutral site game over in Charlotte, and then they go on the road against Clemson. I think if they can beat Tennessee at a neutral site, or if they can beat Clemson on the road, I think they win one of those two, and they can clean up the rest of the season, which the rest of their schedule is not super hard outside of senior or the last game of the season rivalry week against Carolina on the road. I think that's just always a tough game, no matter how good either of these teams are. But I think if NC State, like I said, if they get through September, they win one of those two games, I think at that point, I'm more in, hey, like they're actually one of these 12, but until that happens, they're more in the wild cards. But that would be, if you're like making predictions, if they, the second they win one of those two games, I would be putting my money on them to secure one of those wins.
They definitely can be, and I also want to look at Missouri's schedule real quick too, because they've been looking a lot better lately. So, looking at their schedule, tough games. They got A&M at Kyle Field. That's always tough, even when A&M's bad. They got Bama in Tuscaloosa. Then they got Oklahoma coming to Columbia. So they got a couple of tough games in here. I genuinely think, though, with the way the bid system works, they could lose two, maybe even all three of them if they look good enough. advanced this weekend. So 12 is a lot of teams. It's a lot of teams. It's probably too many teams in my book.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will hop the break super quickly. When we get back, we'll talk about two maybe Olympic athletes, but in a different sense.
Aldo from Sonic Youth. You're listening to 90.3 The Rock, Knoxville's home for classic alternatives. So turn it up real loud, why don't you?
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. The 2024 football Vols will play home games inside Neyland Stadium against SEC rivals Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and others. AllVols.com for info with a link at WTKRadio.com. UT student ticket info is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. 90.3 The Rock says, go Vols.
Support for WUTK comes from Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft fare such as burgers, wings, and more with high tops around the bar, a separate dining area, and a center lounge with leather chairs and couches in front of their 23-foot LED TV wall for Tennessee and pro sports. Fieldhouse Social is an outdoor patio with trivia twice a week and sponsors Wednesday's Rock Solid Sports. FieldhouseSocial.com.
This is Beach Fossils, and you're listening to 90.3 The Rock, where music matters most.
WUTK is Knoxville's source for the best modern rock and classic alternatives. But we also take you back to the bands that started it all on our classic rock show, Kill Ugly Radio, every Wednesday night from 10 p.m. to midnight.
Kill Ugly Radio plays rare tracks and deep cuts from the rock icons and tunes from bands you never hear on commercial radio. And no, we don't play Freebird.
Join me, DJ Hart,
And me, DJ Max,
as we keep Sister Ray's vibe alive every Wednesday night from 10 to midnight, right after the alternative.
It's 90.3 The Rock's Kill Ugly Radio.
Volunteer Radio receives support from the Tennessee Smokies Baseball, AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. Its 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands, Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. WUTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WUTKRadio.com.
Hello and welcome back into WTK's Rock Solid Sports. Sitting here with Keegan, who's got some very exciting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, about a week ago, Tyreek Hill said, and I quote, "I would beat Noah Lyles. I would beat him by a lot. I wouldn't beat him by a lot, but I would beat Noah Lyles." As you don't know, Noah Lyles is the current, I think we should call him the fastest man in the world, the 100-meter Olympic champion, and third place in the 200-meter dash. Tyreek Hill initially challenged him to a 100-meter dash, which we can start there. I don't think he beat him in 100 meters because Noah Lyles is quite literally the fastest human in the world in that. But now, the race, it seems like what might possibly happen is a 50-meter race. And I think, this will be my take, I think Tyreek Hill wins that race. The reason why, if you watch Noah Lyles in the Olympics, Noah Lyles is the back half of the 100 runner. When they were at, I think, the 60-meter point, he was in last place, and he kicked that back half. He's not super good off the blocks. Once he gets momentum, he's going. I think his fastest point was the 70 meters. This is not the case for most runners. Most runners come super quick off the block, hitting top speeds around 30, 40. He hits them way later. I think with Tyreek Hill, he's faster off the block, a little quicker. I think Tyreek Hill could win in that. It's been a big topic in the media, but Dom will kick with you and then Sophie.
I feel like that's ridiculous. I feel like the gold medal winner wins no matter what, especially if they're doing it off the blocks. Now, if you did want to say if they're starting like wide receivers do standing, I do genuinely think Tyreek Hill has a great shot at being able to win that if it's just 50 meters. But if they're coming off the blocks, there's absolutely no way that Tyreek Hill wins anything. And quickly, too, I wanted to shout out Noah Lyles because he has been a marketing genius. No one would have known.
He's the worst. He's the worst.
But that's the point. No one would have known or cared about him if he wasn't starting beef with every professional athlete on the face of the planet. And as an Olympic athlete, you get one little spotlight every 4 years. You have to do crazy stuff to make sure that people remember your name. People have been talking about Noah Lyles all summer long. I mean, the guy is smart. He's
Yeah.
making his money.
I'll give him that, but his like whole world champions of what thing is so stupid to me too. Like, oh,
It is, but that's the
oh,
point.
okay, who's the best other outside of NBA team with the Mets 92 or whatever, the Israel team. I mean, the Celtics would beat them by 30 points, but I digress. Sophie, what are your thoughts on this race here?
Well-
Do you think Tyreek Hill has a shot?
Well, both of our candidates are rather confident in their abilities,
That's
which
true.
what I think is making this so interesting because both of them, without a shadow of a doubt, think they would win. But again, marketing genius because now we're all hooked. We're like, would he win? Do we know? But honestly, I kind of gotta agree with Dom on this one. Like, fastest in the world. Like, yes, we can look at the certain like spots he was running, but he's just lighter. Like, I just want to start there. He's just a lighter person than Tyreek Hill.
That is a good point.
And I just think he is better, like, endurance, probably. Yes, Tyreek is going to have a better lead. His lead is crazy. Like, he starts off much faster. But, I mean, he's the fastest guy in the world. Like, no hate to Tyreek. He is really fast. But I think he's a little bit out of his wheelhouse here with, like, an Olympic champion and challenging him. But I'm interested to see how it turns out for sure because they both think that they have got it down to a science.
Now, do you guys think it'd be better if it happened or it didn't happen? Because if it happens, then the conversation's over. If it doesn't happen, right? It's just you keep talking about it.
I think both of them don't want it to happen because then we, like you said, we keep talking about it and it keeps being a little thing. Well, there's not many sports going on right now. Though my baseball faithful, love you guys. We can't talk about baseball tonight because Keegan's on the show. But yeah, no, I mean, not a lot of people pay attention to baseball. I get it, but yeah, it's the summer sports cycle. There's not a ton to talk about, and it's giving these guys a ton of brand attention.
I think that's definitely true, but it's also kind of, it feels like the beginning of the Mike Tyson Jake Paul thing, like, which is just dead at this point. Like, I saw something about that today online. I was like, have they not fought yet? Like, this has been months, like, in the making, which can be really good for brand stuff. But at some point, they're going to be like, all right, you're talking a lot of game right now, both of you. Maybe prove it. Maybe back up the statements you're making. It's kind of what I think. At some point, I'll be like, all right, they're just talking a big game. Let's actually see who would win.
Yeah, that's kind of been a theme this week, though. A lot of people talking a lot and not a lot happening. And Tyreek Hill's been on the receiving end of two of these. And another thing I wanted to bring up was flag football will be in the Olympics in 2028. Kind of new thing they're doing with the Olympics is each country is kind of able to add something that works well for their country. With the Paris Games, we obviously saw the break dancing thing, which gave us that ray gun girl from Australia, which
This is brilliant.
was quite interesting. But like I said, we have flag football, and the U.S. has a flag football team. It's a lot of people who I think wanted to be in the NFL and are not in the NFL. They were the 2022 flag football world champions, if that means anything to you, but they've lost a couple of games recently. And this kind of got brought in the news just, obviously because the Olympic cycle is happening and LA is now on a lot of people's minds, but also that the quarterback of the current flag football team, Daryl Duche or Duchette, I don't know how to say it, not that relevant, said that he is better at flag football than Patrick Mahomes because of his IQ, that there's specific nuances. I think it's just ridiculous. If you put the best current flag football team against Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and these stars, I don't even think it's close.
Yeah.
And I think you could take the 10th best quarterback, the 20th best receiver in the NFL, put them up. I think they still win. I think there are some nuances, right? Like, you're not tackling people. You can't be as physical. There are certain ways you move the body to avoid, like, your flag is getting grabbed. But guess what? These guys are still the best football players in the world. That's like saying, if we had decided instead of Jimmer Fredette and Rick Barry's grandson, whoever else we put on that 3-on-3 team, that's like saying that they would be better at 3-on-3 than Steph Curry, LeBron, and KD. Like, that's just not the case. It is a different sport to an extent, but it's still football. Tyreek Hill is faster. He probably has better football IQ. He can catch the ball better. Patrick Mahomes he might be like Patrick Mahomes. It might be a better flag football player than an NFL player. I mean, he does all this crazy stuff. The Lions preseason game is throwing it behind his back. Like, that's his style. Seems like it might fit flag football better. I think the whole thing's ridiculous. Again, probably similar to Noah Lyles. He probably saw what Noah Lyles doing. He's like, let me get my name out there a little bit. I think it's ridiculous. Do either of you guys have a take? Do you think there will be one player from the flag football roster that will make the Olympic roster over the NFL if they decide to go the route of taking NFL players?
No. And this is why. I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would be absolutely amazing at flag football, but he's got to make decisions fast enough because a 200-plus pound linebacker is coming at him. Like, there's a quickness there and a smartness. If he wasn't worrying about, blowing his knee out on getting tackled, I'm sure he'd have time to make much more, accurate decisions. But with what he's doing and people coming at him, he's pretty incredible. It's just it is a different sport in the sense of maybe flag football players have a better IQ, but they got to worry about a lot less stuff. Like, as far as injury goes and the quickness of getting tackled or getting sacked as a quarterback. But it's one of those like tennis pickleball debates. Like, same sport, yes, very different in different ways. I think an NFL player has to have all of the elements to be a great player, and it kind of is just like a few key ones when you're playing flag.
Yeah, and I've always had the take that I think NFL and NBA players, in my mind, are the best and most skilled athletes on the planet. I think if you took NFL players and put them in something like handball in the Olympics, and if they trained for it, I think they could dominate our current handball team. It's probably dudes that are like financial advisors and plumbers and stuff in their free or in their regular life. I think they would go in there and smack them. I think if you took the best sinners and stuff in the NBA, you throw in a volleyball team, give them a year of training, smack our current volleyball team. Like, I think people, you're seeing them play against each other, right? But they're just such ridiculous athletes. Like, most of these guys who are in the NBA or in the NFL played a million different sports. I mean, we'll wrap it back to Tennessee. Nico was one of the best volleyball players in the country. I think Nico was like literally a top ranked volleyball player, and I mean, obviously he's going to pick football or volleyball a little more cash there. I mean, he just a little. He just signed with
millions.
Beats. But yeah, I mean, I think these guys are just way better.
Yeah, I genuinely think you could take the brain of a gerbil and put it in Patrick Mahomes' head, and he would still be a better flag football player than whoever this guy is. I think genuinely, like you said, in the NFL, you're worried about a lot more than just someone stealing your flags. And I just like the level of quickness in the NFL cannot be understated, because it's like the NBA too, where these athletes they're moving so fast, the pace of play is so unbelievably higher than anything anyone is used to, that going into flag football with these guys who don't have the same ability to commit all their time to training, are not as physically gifted, not as tall, not as muscular, not as fast, like it's no contest. I mean, just the lateral movement, the lateral quickness, they're going to be running circles around it. It cannot compare in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got 4 years to see this happen, but I really hope they allow NFL players to be in this. Because sorry to our friend Mr. Daryl Boucher, if he is the starting quarterback for the USA team, I will probably not be tuning in.
They probably will be able to play. Just looking at it from the perspective of they let them play in Pro Bowl, and the Pro Bowl's
not anymore. Or I guess
it's flag football now, so they'll probably allow their guys to play. It's the off season.
Yeah, until one of them gets like rocked by Chris Jones, and they're like, "Wait, we're not built for this." Like, that's all it's gonna take.
Defense will be interesting. I will say that defense is going to be interesting in flag football because it's going to be all of our top defensive backs essentially. It's going to be. I still think they'll run circles around everyone, but it's going to be interesting seeing them try to resist hitting people because I feel like that might be a little bit of a problem when you train your entire life to essentially hit someone when you're playing the game of football.
Yeah, I think like a guy like Trayvon Diggs would be ridiculous in flag football. You're picking off like we're going against like I don't know like China or something. They got some like 5'6" dude who's never played football before, and Trayvon Diggs is like going up in the air to catch a ball with him. He's taking that down 10 times out of 10.
You know, you could put Eli Apple in there, and I still think that he would be better than the next best professional cornerback for any of the other flag football teams around the world. The talent gap is going to be genuinely insane to watch. So I hope that to just put our foot down, we do really send our best guys.
Yeah. Well, on that note, and this can be the last thing to talk about since we're on this topic. I mean, we're making predictions for something that's 4 years away, but why not? Do you think there's another country that could put? I mean, I think if NFL players play there, it's a question. But who do you think would be that second team? Like, what country could be like what France was for basketball and football? Do you think there's anyone?
It's going to be Canada. Canada's going to be
Yeah.
number two because the CFL, they're just going to be able to, have the same, not the same talent pool, but an actual talent pool to choose from because there is NFL Europe, but that's a lot of different countries and not very solidified. So I really think Canada has the solid number two spot.
Yeah, I mean they're obviously the second biggest in terms of NFL players. I believe Germany is number 3, so maybe we see some Germans out there. I mean they same with basketball were pretty good. I believe they had what's his face Schroeder on their team and a couple of NBA guys too. Like they seem to produce some good talent that comes to the U.S. And I mean I think you could see maybe some teams or some countries that are good at rugby, like you think of New Zealand or an Australia or something like that.
I mean
that is
maybe.
even more physical
Yeah.
sport, but like I guess it's the closest, right? If
Yeah.
we're looking past
It's
that.
not as quick though. It's not as quick.
No.
But there is Australian rules football, and that's a little closer to the NFL. So maybe, but probably not.
Not really. We kind of take the cake when it comes to football. Like, we're getting there with soccer. Europe's obviously just much better at soccer than we are. But I really don't think, as far as like just our like pure athleticism, that anyone is close to football.
I mean, maybe you see some like rugby team come in and figure out some like flag football strategy where they can just like run hook and ladder and go all the way up the field. Like, I mean, I know the rugby people that I follow always are like that hook and ladder should be brought into football, and I feel like maybe in flag football it could work better if you do some hook laterals. But that is about all we have for you guys. Kind of a little bit more of a random show, but we'll be back next. We'll be back on Friday, but next week will be some real Tennessee football.